This is the accusation. They're throwing around the word treason.
I hate to say this, but President Barack Obama, there is now incontrovertible evidence that he was the spearhead of a seditious conspiracy to subvert the will of the American people and overthrow the United States government back in 2016.
They're saying that Obama knew that Russia did not meddle in the election, did not have any impact in the...
They deserve to have faith and trust in the integrity of our democratic republic, which has been undermined by President Obama through his direction of this manufactured fake intelligence document, knowing that it was filled with lies and knowing that it would and could then be used for all of the actions that came.
What happens when Tulsi Gabbard, the unpredictable voice who treats Congress like a losing team, steps up to present Joe Rogan, the guy who might seriously wonder if elk meat can fix the world? Chaos zeroes in on Barack Obama. That's right, total mayhem. Forget about polite introductions or neatly packaged discussions. What unfolds is a storm of remarks that leave people asking, wait, did they actually say that? It's not just chatter. It's an explosion that rattles the room. For the former president, the heat is cranked up far beyond comfort. So brace yourself, because things are about to get scorching.
You're guilty of massive amounts of misinformation and disinformation as a part of a propaganda campaign.
Attorney General Pam Bondi has directed federal prosecutors to launch a grand jury investigation into members of the Obama administration over the 2016 Russia investigation.
A lot of them are guilty of it.
Yeah,
a lot of the people that are in that White House press conference, a lot of the organizations they work for, distributed absolute lies.
Total lies.
Tulsi Gabbard declassified documents that she says shows Obama administration officials manufactured intelligence to make it look like Russia interfered in the 2016 election.
How many of them during the whole Russiagate thing?
A lot of people think that the Russia thing was real.
Yeah,
Still. I mean, the whole Steele dossier where it was like completely concocted.
Funded by the Clinton campaign.
Barack Obama's great American love affair appeared flawless on the surface, an inspiring bond that looked almost too good to be true. Yet, once you peek behind the curtain, it feels less like perfection and more like a dramatic Netflix series. He had the voice, the charisma, and a polished image that felt larger than life. Even the most ordinary update could sound like art when he delivered it. Crowds cheered and hearts raced, convinced they were witnessing the most extraordinary political moment of their lifetime.
Deflection coming from former President Obama, as well as his friends who are still in Congress today, and Senator Warner and Congressman Jim Himes, really all basically saying that exact same statement, which doesn't actually address the issue that was revealed in great detail in the over 100 documents that we released last week, and the documents that we will be releasing later this week that point to the undeniable fact that you laid out in your introduction to this segment, is that the intelligence community had one assessment, that Russia did not have the intent or capability to try to impact the outcome of the U.S. election leading up to Election Day.
But when the credits faded and the spotlight dimmed, the details told a different story, one made of shock, hope, and a promise of change. That's where Tulsi Gabbard and Joe Rogan step in, an unlikely pair who fill the gap like mismatched detectives chasing the same mystery. Rogan, the sharp-tongued podcast giant and UFC commentator, treats Obama less like a leader and more like another inflated celebrity brand. Known for his fascination with every far-out theory he comes across, Rogan never misses a chance to question the shine surrounding the former president.
That was Obama.
Nah, I'm just kidding. You know I've got to talk about Trump.
Obama was this brilliant lawyer. He was so smooth.
Though I am a little hurt that he's not here tonight. We had so much fun the last time.
He was so measured.
And it is surprising. You've got a room full of reporters, celebrities, cameras, and he says no.
And the way he would talk about things was so statesman-like.
Is this dinner too tacky for the Donald? What could he possibly be doing instead?
As a president, what we have always needed was someone who represents the very best of us.
Is he at home, eating a Trump steak, tweeting out insults to Angela Merkel? What's he doing?
We want someone who seems better than us.
Tulsi comes armed with receipts, calm, disciplined, and battle-tested. The former congresswoman who saw up close what those lofty promises of reform and hope actually produced. Together, she and Rogan form an unexpected buddy cop duo America never knew it was waiting for. In a world buzzing with chaos, one drops hard truths while the other cracks a grin. And against that contrast, Obama's polished image suddenly feels more like a flimsy Instagram filter than the symbol of change it once claimed to be.
And President Obama then directed Obama's DNI James Clapper to lead the effort to create this new intelligence community assessment that detailed not if, but how Moscow attempted to influence the outcome of the U.S. election. So this is the thing that I think people should pay attention to, is neither the message from President Obama's office, neither the statements coming from Democrats in Congress today and their friends in the propaganda media. None of them are addressing this fact that there was a shift, a 180-degree shift from the intelligence community's assessment leading up to the election to the one that President Obama directed be produced after Donald Trump won the election.
For Joe Rogan, politics has always felt less like a serious institution and more like a backyard cookout. Forget the policy jargon and endless think tank reports. He boils it down to raw comparisons. To him, America today looks like a UFC fighter bragging about his flawless footwork while losing every single round. And that's exactly how he sees Obama. Yes, the speeches were smooth, eloquent, and carefully crafted. But beneath that surface were drone strikes falling like party confetti, surveillance programs straight out of Orwell's warnings, and bankers pocketing massive paychecks. Rogan can't help but laugh, not at the suffering itself, but at the absurdity of the contradictions. Imagine a Nobel Peace Prize recipient who oversaw questionable military campaigns before even unpacking his bags at the White House. It's like giving someone Employee of the Month before their first day, only to later discover they raided the supply closet and shredded the company's files. Rogan thrives on spotlighting that irony because, in his eyes, there's nothing more amusing than watching a man once hailed as a visionary leader turn out to be closer to a tech CEO peddling a flashy app that drains your wallet.
This is definitely not helping the Democrats, knowing what we now have confirmed about Biden.
Give me some volume and go full screen.
What you know now, do you wish you had a third term? You know what, if I could make an arrangement where I had a stand-in, a front man or front woman, and they had an earpiece in, and I was just in my basement in my sweats looking through the stuff, and then I could sort of deliver the lines, but somebody else was doing all the talking and ceremony, I'd be fine with that.
We know he wasn't really running the country. Yeah. We used to think he was actually running the country, and now they're like, no, he didn't even see those executive orders. That was all auto-pen.
Tulsi doesn't rely on Rogan's humor to drive her message home. She carries the weight of someone who has served abroad, worn the uniform, and witnessed firsthand how America's foreign policy decisions unfold in reality. To her, Obama's carefully crafted image wasn't just a polished brand. It came with consequences. While much of the world was busy celebrating political theatrics, Tulsi was seeing the cost of those choices. Soldiers burdened by the fallout, civilians overseas caught in the crossfire, and entire regions left strategically unstable. With steady composure, she dismantles the myths surrounding Obama, not by shouting or grandstanding, but by carefully pulling apart the illusion, piece by piece. As someone who once stood inside the system, yet now speaks from the outside, Tulsi exposes what others ignore. She reminds us that behind the applause for flawless speeches, real people were living with the aftermath of those decisions.
The evidence that we have found and that we have released directly point to President Obama leading the manufacturing of this intelligence assessment. There are multiple pieces of evidence and intelligence that confirm that fact. The implications of this are far-reaching and have to do with the integrity of our democratic republic. It has to do with an outgoing president taking action to manufacture intelligence to undermine and usurp the will of the American people in that election and launch what would be a years-long coup against the incoming president of the United States.
The contrast between Rogan and Tulsi is striking and oddly effective. Rogan plays the everyman sitting in his studio with a glass of whiskey, tossing out questions so plain they slice through the nonsense like a blade. Tulsi, on the other hand, carries the gravity of someone who stood in the room where decisions were made, where polished promises collided with harsh realities. Rogan laughs at the absurdities. Tulsi confirms the truths. One cracks the egg, the other cooks it, and together they serve up Obama's legacy as little more than charred toast. She reminds us that under his leadership, politics became a performance perfected to an art form. Obama wasn't just a president, he was a symbol. The brilliance of their exchange lies in its simplicity. Listening to them is like suddenly realizing the magician who dazzled you with card tricks had been hiding the ace up his sleeve all along.
Obama just said that on stage.
Obama just said that.
Our Constitution protects the right to practice free speech.
He doesn't give a
Here in the United States, countless publications provoke offense. Like me, the majority of Americans are Christian, and yet we do not ban blasphemy against our most sacred beliefs.
He doesn't give a They're
That's
just
a flat
going
out
for
goddamn.
it.
As president of our country and commander-in-chief of our military, I accept that people are going to call me awful things every day, and I will always defend their right to do so.
Flat out lie.
Efforts to restrict speech can quickly become a tool to silence critics and oppress minorities. We do so because, given the power of faith in our lives, the strongest weapon against hateful speech is not repression, it is more speech.
Flat out.
Rogan laughs as he calls out the trick. The crowd that once marveled at the performance is left asking, did we really fall for that? When Tulsi calmly breaks the illusion. And because Obama represented more than a presidency, he embodied culture itself, the fallout is serious. For years, criticizing him felt almost like questioning a sacred relic. But Rogan and Tulsi aren't interested in tiptoeing. Rogan takes delight in popping the bubble, mocking the idea that Americans saw Obama as a Marvel superhero rather than another politician working the Washington system. Tulsi goes further, showing how the Democratic Party's devotion to him weakened it, shifting focus from substance to presentation. Together, they don't just critique Obama, they dismantle the myth. The emperor's new clothes, it turns out, were nothing more than an expertly tailored marketing suit. Rogan keeps it hilarious with his pop culture jabs, while Tulsi carves through the legacy with facts and precision, making sure the audience walks away with no illusions about what Obama truly left behind.
The implications of this are frankly nothing short of historic. Over 100 documents that we released on Friday really detail and provide evidence of how this treasonous conspiracy was directed by President Obama just weeks before he was due to leave office, after President Trump had already gotten elected. This is not a Democrat or Republican issue. This is an issue that is so serious it should concern every single American because it has to do with the integrity of our democratic.
Joe Rogan's strength isn't that he's the sharpest policy expert in the room. It's that he blurts out what everyone else is too polished, cautious, or rehearsed to say. It's like sitting in a 5-star restaurant and someone leans over to whisper, "This tastes like cardboard." Rogan strips away the sparkle, and sparkle is exactly what defines Obama's brand. But Rogan isn't only poking fun at Obama. He's pointing at America itself for buying into the illusion. He laughs at how people turned every photo into a relic and every speech into scripture. And the audience laughs too, realizing just how absurd that sounds. Then comes Tulsi Gabbard, not with a punchline, but with a precision that leaves the room uneasy in its honesty. Unlike Rogan, she isn't observing from the outside. She lived it. She wore the uniform, walked the ground in combat zones, and saw firsthand what those polished promises translated into on the battlefield.
Don't think that I am that you'll never be president of the United States. You see Trump in the audience going, okay, motherfucker.
I was actually at that White House Correspondents' Dinner. It was so over the top. It was like making everyone uncomfortable.
Donald Trump has been saying that he will run for president as a Republican, which is surprising since I just assumed he was running as a joke.
But they twisted the knife big on Trump in that. And you could see Trump just getting like angrier and angrier and more upset. I was two tables away from Trump, and I'm looking, I'm like, man, this is too much.
Tulsi doesn't waste time with memes or clever metaphors. She speaks plainly and doesn't hold back. To her, Obama's foreign policy was never about truly solving conflicts. It was about rebranding. Troops would leave one region only for operations to quietly expand in another. Promises of transparency were paired with ever-growing surveillance programs until your phone practically turned red with embarrassment. The labels might have been strategic engagement, peace, or development, but on the ground, those pledges shattered under the weight of bombs and broken trust. Because Tulsi isn't driven by party grudges, she steps into the role of myth-breaker with credibility. She isn't chasing the spotlight, she's dismantling a carefully built image. Together, she and Rogan deliver a brutal 1-2 punch. Rogan gets the audience laughing at how absurd it is to glorify a leader whose track record doesn't match the legend. Then Tulsi raises the stakes, laying out hard evidence that the consequences weren't abstract policy slip-ups. They were real, measurable, and devastating.
The journey of our democratic republic, of our elections, is of paramount importance to the American people. knowing what had occurred previously, the things, this Russia hoax thing that was called a conspiracy, I wanted to get to the bottom of the truth of what actually happened here. This was obviously important to President Trump, but again, is an issue of importance to every single American in this country and the future of our country as a republic. So shortly after coming into this position as Director of National Intelligence, I formed a special team to investigate this issue. I got to tell you, it wasn't easy. There were a lot of deep state obstacles that exist still within the intelligence community.
The strangest part of Obama's appeal was that his untouchability became the core of it. For years, even mild criticism of him felt like political blasphemy. But Rogan and Tulsi refused to play by those rules. Rogan treats the sacred cow like entertainment at a kid's birthday party, twisting it into a balloon animal for laughs. Tulsi, with steady precision, walks up with a pin, pops it, and reveals it was just hot air all along. Their mix of styles makes the impact even stronger. Rogan speaks the language of everyday people. Funny, blunt, endlessly curious. He might compare Obama's presidency to a Netflix show that started with promise but unraveled with glaring plot holes by season 3. Tulsi, by contrast, is calm and deliberate, like a practiced prosecutor entering halfway through a film with the piece of evidence that flips the entire story. By the time they're done, the audience is left wondering how they ever believed the hype in the first place. What makes their takedown sting even more is how current it feels. Obama reshaped politics into a kind of performance art, teaching a generation of leaders that branding could outweigh actual policy. Rogan and Tulsi pull back the curtain to expose how hollow that formula really was. The nation may have been dazzled by a marketing genius, but in the end, the spectacle solved nothing.
Have you ever seen that video?
No.
Pull that video up, because it's one of my favorite.
Even as we are a nation of immigrants, we're also a nation of laws. Undocumented workers broke our immigration laws, and I believe that they must be held accountable, especially those who may be dangerous. If you're a criminal, you'll be deported. If you plan to enter the U.S. illegally, your chances of getting caught and sent back just went up. The actions I'm taking are not only lawful, they're the kinds of actions taken by every single Republican president and every single Democratic president for the past half century.
According to Rogan, Obama's presidency is like buying a flashy gym membership that promises you'll look like a Hollywood star in 6 weeks, only to discover the treadmill breaks down mid-run and the vending machine is filled with expired protein bars. It's that mixture of hype and disappointment that he loves to highlight. He takes the shine off the brand, reminding the audience that what looked polished and perfect often turned out to be cheap packaging. Tulsi adds the sobering counterpoint. While Americans were dazzled by slogans and speeches, soldiers were still deployed, civilians were still paying with their lives, and the same powerful corporate interests quietly pulled the strings in Washington. The promises of hope and change became little more than a cycle of rinse and repeat. Her calm delivery, sharpened by firsthand experience in uniform, cuts deeper than any joke could. The magic of this unusual pairing lies in the balance. Rogan cracks jokes, compares Obama's legacy to a Netflix series with plot holes or a Marvel hero who turned out to be just another politician in disguise. He makes people laugh at the absurdity of worshiping a president like a pop star. Tulsi then steps in with receipts showing how those myths had tangible costs, destabilized regions, surveillance that ballooned out of control, and promises that collapsed under their own weight. Together, their critique is scathing yet entertaining, realistic yet humorous. They don't shout, they don't whine, and they don't posture. Instead, they layer humor with hard truths, creating a perspective that even Obama's most polished defenders struggle to dismiss. The result is a slow-motion train wreck of a legacy, one that looked like artful performance on the surface, but beneath the applause and branding, failed to deliver.